We're going to be doing a new series coming up with the regular season starting, so let's jump into it. As I mentioned in my last video, I'm going to be doing things a little bit different, kind of shaking up the schedule for the regular season. So for this season, I'm going to be doing articles for you on Wednesday and Thursday, and then I'll be doing videos on Wednesday as well for my article. So there's really no set way that I'm going to be doing my articles on Wednesday. It's kind of up in the air, kind of whatever I want to choose to do. But then for Thursday, I'll be doing the Thursday night preview articles. So breaking down the matchups and really just talking about, what we want to see out of those Thursday night games. So without further ado, we're going to jump into it today. And before the season starts, I wanted to give you my 2021 Dynasty Owner Value MVPs. So in Dynasty Owner, so much we talk about looking years out, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, trying to predict that. Well, this article is just going to be solely about value for the 2021 season. And I'll give you my MVP picks along with a few honorable mentions that almost made the list but didn't quite make it. So let's jump into it. The 2021 value MVPs. Little preface, I wanted to start by saying, so obviously the player I used in my article was Tyreek Hill. So we all know Tyreek Hill he's expected to be a top scoring wide receiver, if not the number one wide receiver on the year. I own Hill in one of my Dynasty Owner leagues. I love him as a player this year. I think he's going to be great. But when you're looking at value, especially MVP value, his salary of $18 million just isn't going to get it done. So while I think that he will probably win people a lot of leagues, the value won't win you your league. He'll just do it on sheer production. And so we also take into account ADP when looking at value. So his current ADP is 26.1, which is a little bit higher than what I'm looking for when I'm trying to find that real value MVP. Regardless, let's jump into it. So we'll start with quarterback. We'll do all four positions, all four major positions. In my search for a quarterback, there were a bunch that popped up. These players included Lamar Jackson, Trey Lance. Believe it or not, I think he's going to be an exceptional steal, especially later on in the season. And Jalen Hurts, they're all on cheap enough salaries. So great contracts. ADPs aren't too high. Lamar Jackson might be a little bit high for my liking, but those are all players that I took into account for this. But the player that I took, and it might shock some of you, is Sam Darnold. So I know, it's not going to be a popular pick, but let's go through it, and hopefully I can try to convince you a little bit by the end of this video. Darnold was drafted in the NFL by the Jets, 2018, third overall pick. What you may not have known, though, is that he started his first NFL game as the youngest starting quarterback in NFL history, at least in the past 40 years, so before the merger. It's also worth noting that Joe Burrow is about 6 months older than Darnold, so use that as a frame of reference. Darnold's been in the league 2 years longer, and he's actually younger than Joe Burrow. So it just shows you how young of a quarterback he was when he started his career. Take from that what you will. It's not really an excuse for how he played, but that definitely factors into it. So Darnold, we know he was done hardly any favors by the Jets, especially by Adam Gase, probably one of the worst offensive-minded head coaches that we've seen in a while, at least recently. So let's talk about it. We know that Ryan Tannehill, as soon as he left Gase's grasp, he ended up being, above average, quite a bit above average. So I know it's anecdotal evidence, but it's still something to keep in mind that, as soon as he gets away from Gase, especially goes to a head coach that's a little bit better, I think he definitely has a lot more upside. Also, we know that Darnold is joining the most athletic and talented offensive core that he's ever seen. That includes players like Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in the league, Robbie Anderson, and DJ Moore. So a lot of talent around him. I project that Darnold's going to have a great bounce-back season. I would be very happy to own him in Dynasty Owner, and it's a far cry from, last year when people were pretty much selling for nothing. I saw Darnold go for a third-round pick, and I don't even think that was 2021. So he was getting dropped for really nothing, and I would be happy to own him. And here's the best part. The best part is that his current salary, he has one more year, we know, is right at $7.5 million. But his ADP is 114.8. So very late you can get him. And that's great for a cheap quarterback, a starting quarterback. He looks to be the starter the whole season, and especially one that has the upside of him coming into a new team. So I would love to have him as a bench quarterback this season. I don't know if I would necessarily trust him as a starter, but if you can, save money on your bench quarterback and have one that's going to be productive, as I project he'll be, that's going to be a big value for you coming into 2021. Running back I want to talk about. I think everybody knows, at least if they've watched my videos and read my articles, that I love Antonio Gibson. I thought about putting him in here, but I've been talking about him probably a little bit too much. So I wanted to go with a little bit deeper of a player. Gibson's ADP is 12.1, not quite deep enough for a value MVP. So I went with Raheem Mostert, and you might get a little cringe, especially, since I just mentioned Sam Darnold before this and kind of following up with Raheem Mostert, but let me talk to you about it. So Mostert is almost perennially always undervalued. He comes in the 2021 season as the lead back. He has rookie Trey Sermon. Yeah, we know that. Sermon might be the more talented back. He might not be. It's yet to be seen. But what I do know is that Mostert will be the number one back to start the season. What I also know is that he does not need a lot of volume to be productive. We saw it numerous times where he had a handful of carries where he took it to the house. And, I guess any player could technically do that. But Mostert is one of the fastest, if not the fastest running back in the NFL. So he's more poised to do that than any other running back, I think. You get him 10, 12 carries a game. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when he has the chance to break away like he does, that's a big value. So they're going to spread him out all over the field, probably even use him as a receiver occasionally. So as was the case with Darnold, the best part about Mostert is that he's cheap to acquire, both in trade, most likely, and his ADP if you're still drafting. He's currently getting paid $2.9 million, one more year. ADP is 85. So that's great value, especially in Dynasty owner for a starting running back on their team, especially a team that runs as much as San Francisco does. Up next, wide receiver. A few players that came to mind when I was looking at wide receiver, Deebo Samuel. So there you go, Raheem Mostert's counterpart, with the stretch in the field. I considered him. I considered Cortland Sutton, another great value that I see coming into 2021, and Russell Gage. But in the end, I decided to land on Michael Pittman Jr., and that's for a couple of reasons. First, let's talk about why he wasn't as successful in his 2020 season as some might have thought. One, he was a rookie. We know that rookie wide receivers tend to take a year or two to break out, to at least feel comfortable in the league. He also had an alpha receiver in front of him, T.Y. Hilton, who he most likely will not have for at least the majority of the season, maybe the entire season. We still have yet to see what the injury looks like for Hilton. And then also the Colts are one of the most run-heavy offenses in the league with an aging Philip Rivers throwing passes. So I think that Wentz helps the situation. I don't, love Wentz as a value in Dynasty. I think he's a capable quarterback, maybe as capable, if not more capable than Philip Rivers was at the end of his career. And like I said, all three of these things have changed since last year. He's obviously not a rookie anymore. T.Y. is not going to be with the team for at least the opening to the season. And then we also have, Carson Wentz throwing instead of Rivers. So Pittman, he passes all the eye tests. I know it's like a kind of a buzzword that gets thrown around, but he really did. Whenever he played last year, he looked great to me. He's an above-average route runner, above-average physical presence when on the field. So his salary is right at $2.1 million for 3 more years. That's just a great value in general, not even mentioning just this season. And then you pair that with his low ADP, he's right at 91 for his average draft position last time I checked. So that's pretty much a textbook MVP value for 2021. And finally, we're going to talk about Adam Troutman. So I know a little bit of water was thrown on the Troutman fire over this offseason. He had a little bit of an injury a couple weeks ago. Regardless, I'm not going to go with him, but I think he's a good honorable mention to talk about. I think he's going to have a great MVP value type season. I'm going to talk about Gerald Everett instead, though. So Everett signed a single-year contract with the Seahawks back in March. It's a little bit more expensive than I would like for a value. He's at $6 million. But when you look at some of the top-tier tight ends, it's not that terrible, especially when you look at his ADP. He was going at 173.8. Factor in also if you wanted to trade for him. Might take a little bit to get him, away from the Everett owner's hands, but you're talking about probably a bench tight end on most teams. If they have an above average tight end on their team already. I don't think it would cost that much to take him over from a team if you wanted to offer a trade for it. So I think Everett's going to be a great value this season. He should fit in very well with the other two dominant pass catchers for the Seahawks. So I appreciate everybody listening. Go ahead and read my article if you haven't done that already. I did a pretty decent job, I think, of recapping it, but there's always things in there that I don't talk about, give a little extra tidbits. So look out for my article. It's going to come out tomorrow. I'm not going to be doing a video with the Thursday night preview articles, but check out the article. Make sure you read it before the Thursday night game starts. Hopefully get a lot of helpful information, not necessarily about who's starting to sit, but about what to watch for in the game and what kind of values we can see going on as the game plays. So I appreciate everybody following me on Twitter at Dynasty Jerk and at Dynasty Owner on Twitter, and then also subscribe on YouTube, Dynasty Owner. It helps us out a lot. So I appreciate everybody listening. Take